Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. Washington, D.C. held its annual baseball game between Democrats and Republicans. What does that have to do with California? One state representative was caught making an obscene gesture on camera. We'll tell you who she was. The FBI released the statistics for active shooter incidents across the United States in 2021. We'll look at the numbers, including what might be a surprising result based on state laws. Residents in one San Jose neighborhood are protesting against tiny homes getting built in their park. They say it will attract more homeless and potentially other undesirable people. The Congressional Baseball Game is an annual event where Democrat and Republican lawmakers face off in Washington, D.C. for charity. At this year's game, a representative from California was caught on camera making an obscene gesture at her opposing team. NTD's Jason Blair has the details.
California Democratic Representative Linda Sanchez was seen on camera directing an obscene gesture toward Republican lawmakers during the 87th Congressional Baseball Game. The Congressional Baseball Game is an annual charity event where Democratic and Republican lawmakers face off in Washington, D.C. It happened during the sixth inning. Sanchez was at bat and drew a walk. She was replaced by a pinch runner, and while Sanchez was jogging back to the Democratic bench, she is seen giving the middle finger toward the Republican dugout. The video, taken by C-SPAN, has been garnering responses on social media. Author Nick Adams tweeted, calling the California rep classless. Sanchez's office responded to the incident, saying, "I heard an offensive and misogynistic comment from the Republican side while jogging back to the dugout. In the heat of the moment, I reacted. I have no tolerance for men who make women feel like they are unimportant or don't belong, especially on the field. I will always stand against that kind of bigotry." Dozens of climate protesters were also seen in front of the stadium during the game. Some were seen chanting and blocking an entrance. 3 protesters were arrested for entering the stadium unlawfully. The congressional game ended with the Republicans beating the Democrats 10-0. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
The FBI issued a report listing all the active shooter incidents that occurred in the United States last year. California was leading the nation again with the most active shooter situations. NTD's David Lamb spoke to a criminal defense attorney on the matter.
According to a recently published study, the FBI indicated a total of 61 active shooter incidents in the United States in 2021 that occurred across 30 states. In these incidents, 103 people were killed and 140 wounded. California, while having some of the most gun laws per state in the nation, also leads with the most shooting incidents, 6. The 6 active shooter incidents in California killed nearly 20 victims and wounded 9. According to a criminal defense lawyer who has been practicing law for over 20 years, he's not surprised due to California's population.
California is where the street gangs were found, so there's a lot more guns, and I'm not talking about legal ones, I'm talking about illegal guns.
Based on the FBI study, California has about 0.015 shootings per 100,000 people. By comparison, Texas, with almost no state gun laws, has just about the same ratio, 0.0167. Texas saw 5 active shooter situations, along with Georgia. Georgia had a ratio of 0.045. Nonetheless, California is continuing to push for further gun restrictions. A new California Senate Bill 918, which is on its way through the legislature, would ban the carrying of guns in most public areas, regardless if someone has a carry license or not. But Hashemi suggests a slightly different approach. He says the Second Amendment cannot be violated, but he hopes certain people would be restricted from owning a firearm.
So what kind of changes would you like to see in California gun laws?
That's another good question. I think California gun laws are very strict. They could be a little bit more stricter. I think California needs to implement these background checks, but at the same time make sure they don't infringe people's rights to their own.
Hashemi says checking buyers for red flags for mental illness or mental medication is important. The FBI defines an active shooter as one or more people engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. While Hashemi says there is no easy answer to how gun laws should be handled, he hopes both sides can have open discussion.
Meaning both sides need to come, sit down, and listen on what's going on. I know one side says we should ban guns, and one side says that there should be no regulation, but there needs to be a meeting of the minds in the middle.
He added the importance of the Second Amendment is to give the civilians of the United States a check on the government. Nationwide, the number of incidents jumped up from previous years, where there were 40 incidents in 2020 and around 30 incidents from 2017 to 2019. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
For California's homelessness situation, some officials are proposing a solution known as tiny homes. And in the Bay Area, some residents are strongly opposed to them being built in their neighborhoods. NTD's Eileen Ang has the why locals are pushing back.
How we can know you guys are taking that seriously consideration,
San Jose residents are speaking out against tiny homes being built on an existing park in their Noble Alum Rock neighborhood. Tiny homes are single-room structures, often built in the hundreds, used to put a roof over homeless people's heads. One resident cited the risk of the proposed location.
We don't want to take the risk of our parks being damaged or possibility of our children being harmed. So we want it relocated. Our stance on this, we feel for the homeless. We believe they have to have housing, but not in a neighborhood on a park next to a school. It needs to be on the outskirts or in an industrial area of some sort. It should not be on neighborhood parks and schools.
The location is about a minute walk from Noble Elementary School, a children's playground, and a library. It's also a 7-minute walk from both Piedmont Middle School and Toyon Elementary School, as well as a 20-minute walk from a high school. The city is proposing to build 100 tiny homes in the area.
They're like a bunch of little sheds that you can buy at Costco, basically, and they're putting them on sites, and they're putting gated fences around them, and we hear they can have from either 1 to 4 people per home that we've been told.
Just 5 years ago, they deemed that 17 houses it wasn't a good choice. Well, nothing's changed in the 5 years, except the number of houses that they want to build.
Residents worry that if the tiny homes are built, it would attract more homeless people.
We know they're not going to stay in their little tiny houses. They're going to be walking around. And we're not against homeless people, but we don't know what kind of homeless people we're going to get.
And what has happened, the homeless that we see that people don't want in their neighborhoods, or they don't want the RVs broken down, the tents, dirtiness, and people hanging around, and possible drug use.
I live right on Penitentiary Creek. There's a homeless community down there in tents. In the last 6 weeks, there's been none less than 5 fires started by the homeless people right in the creek. You can verify it with the fire department.
They plan to protest at the San Jose City Council meeting next week. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
A San Francisco judge has issued a restraining order blocking the California Department of Transportation from clearing Oakland's largest homeless encampment. The judge wants more resources and a plan to support the homeless first. But the city's work related to this encampment is still in progress, and Caltrans has expressed the safety concerns over encampment-related fires.
District Judge William H. Orrick of San Francisco issued a restraining order last week blocking an effort by the California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, to clear the Wood Street homeless encampment in Oakland. The encampment is the largest in the city. Governor Gavin Newsom said Friday the ruling will, quote, endanger the public. He said this encampment is risking public health and safety. The state provided $4.7 million in grants to the city of Oakland, specifically to rehouse the individuals at the Wood Street encampment. It is beyond time to meet this moment and address this challenge. Orrick said officials needed a proper plan to rehouse the individuals in the encampment before clearing it. He told officials during a hearing that I understand everybody wants to wash their hands of this particular problem, and that's not going to happen. But Steven Silver, an attorney for Caltrans, said encampments are, quote, simply a potential catastrophe that cannot be tolerated. He added that Caltrans, as a transportation agency, is not equipped to provide resources to the homeless. Caltrans has already reported several fire incidents. A fire in July damaged several vehicles on the I-80. In April, a man was killed by a fire in the RV in which he was living. Entity previously reported that Oakland's homeless fires have tripled in number in recent years. The city council is expected to vote to accept their $4.7 million in state grants and build temporary housing on Wood Street by 2024. The grant would fund up to 100 beds and shelter roughly 200 people.
A growing number of Californians now live in wildfire danger zones. According to a July 28th report by Chapman University, building more homes as a solution to the state's housing crisis may be putting more people in danger of wildfire. NTD's Daniel Hall reports.
Using U.S. Census data, student researchers from Chapman University estimated nearly 13% of California's population lives in at-risk areas for wildfire. Postdoctoral researcher and project mentor Shenyue Jia pointed to rapid housing development as the cause for the increase. She said, in California, such pressures are largely driven by the increase of human populations and rapid real estate development in response to the housing crisis. Understanding which regions experienced significant population growth over the past decade can identify communities at greater risk of wildfire, especially when using the most recent demographic data. Contra Costa, Alameda, and Riverside counties saw the biggest jump in at-risk areas in the past decade. According to the study, Riverside has the highest number of residents living in housing tracts in the wildfire danger zones. Meanwhile, firefighters continued to make progress on the Oak Fire near Yosemite National Park this week. The fire has consumed more than 19,000 acres and was 45% contained as of Friday morning. Daniel Hall, NTD News, California.
We are going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we've got for you when we come back. A signature gathering organization is suing the Recall Gascon Campaign. A lawyer for the organization says it's putting the recall in, quote, jeopardy. The San Francisco Police Department is offering a large reward for details leading to the capture of a suspect in a homicide case. The killing happened years ago and has gone unsolved. And a California woman was attacked by a seal while swimming in the ocean. Luckily, she survived the attack. Onlookers caught the incident on camera. That and more on California Today. Now that the campaign to recall the Los Angeles District Attorney has submitted all of its signatures, a petition collecting company is suing the campaign. They're alleging that they are unpaid bills.
Let the Voters Decide, a company that gathers petition signatures for state and local ballot measures, sued the Recall Gascon Committee. They allege that the recall organizers owe the company at least roughly $470,000 for unpaid work. According to the lawsuit, the company was hired to work at the committee's direction, receiving pay for each signature gathered. But they say the campaign hasn't paid up. A lawyer for Let the Voters Decide said the lack of payment has put the recall effort in, quote, real jeopardy of failure. The committee is seeking to recall Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon.
Police in San Francisco are offering a large reward for leads on a homicide investigation.
The San Francisco Police Department is offering a $75,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of a suspect responsible for killing Mitchell Warren. In September 2016, officers found 24-year-old Warren, a San Francisco resident, suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital but died from his injuries. In July 2018, the police department requested the public's help to solve the homicide. Since then, the suspect has been seen riding on a bicycle caught on a surveillance video. Police are asking anyone with information to call the SFPD 24-hour tip line or send a text to tip 411.
Apple is holding out better than Amazon. It reported earnings late Thursday. It says parts shortages are easing and that demand for iPhones is unceasing, despite consumers tightening on other spending.
Apple's posted a strong outlook for months ahead despite the slumping economy. On Thursday, they said a shortage in parts and disruptions to the supply chain were letting up, and demands for iPhones showed no signs of slowing down, despite consumers shutting their wallets. The iPhone is the company's biggest source of revenue. Phone sales in the fiscal third quarter rose 3% when Wall Street was expecting a 3% decline. Apple's loyal and relatively affluent customer base has let it weather spending dips better than other brands in the past. But the company did offer some caution. Chief Financial Officer Luca Maestri said the glum economy has hit sales of advertising, accessories, and home products, and sales of its services grew slower than expected. Like many companies that generate substantial revenue overseas, Apple is getting less cash back when converted, no thanks to a rising dollar. Business took a hit after the company left Russia earlier this year, after the conflict in Ukraine began. And Chinese consumers in lockdown also limited sales. Finally, Apple, like many of its tech industry peers, is hiring less and cutting costs given the tough economic climate.
Chinese nationals are buying up American real estate at an unprecedented rate, and California is one of the main areas taking in Chinese money.
The Chinese became the biggest investor in American real estate last year. That investment accounted for $6.1 billion in California and Florida. As this is happening, the U.S. homebuilder confidence is at a low. According to the New York Post, U.S. homebuilder confidence plummeted 12 points to 55 in July, according to the latest data from the National Association of Homebuilders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index. That is a measure of how confident homebuilders are in the economy. Other countries also spent a significant sum of money on houses in the United States. This includes Canada, India, Mexico, and Brazil, all spending well above $1 billion.
A California woman was swimming in Hawaii over the weekend when a seal came up and attacked her on the waters. After over a minute, the woman was brought back to the shore and transported by EMS. Here's the footage captured from a distance.
Footage shows a swimmer at a beach in Waikiki, Hawaii, who was injured this weekend after encountering an endangered Hawaiian monk seal with a young pup. A marine agency said their workers witnessed a swimmer come into contact with the mother monk seal, known as Rocky, on Sunday morning. The Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources said in a statement that the victim is a 60-year-old elementary school teacher from California. The agency said the woman received lacerations to her face, arm, and back and requested to stay anonymous. A marine agency said the seal gave birth to a pup 2 weeks ago in the same area and have been warning people to stay away. The area was reportedly roped off. The NOAA believes the seals will remain in the bay for another month.
Now let's check in with the NTD's Thomas Christian for the sports roundup.
I'm Thomas Christian. This is your California Today Sports Roundup. Trey Turner and Gavin Lux had 3 hits each. Tyler Anderson tossed 7 shutout innings as Los Angeles clobbered Colorado in Denver. Mookie Betts and Will Smith added 2 hits apiece for the Dodgers, who recorded their 5th straight win over the Rockies. Turner and Smith each knocked in 3 runs. Anderson held his former team to 4 hits and no walks, while fanning 4. Brendan Rodgers had 4 hits for Colorado, which has dropped 5 of its first 7 out of the All-Star break. LA is 6-2 since the break. Dodgers 13, Rockies 0. Spencer Howard outpitched Shohei Ohtani. Corey Seager had 3 hits, and Texas held on to beat the Angels. Howard gave up 3 hits in 5 scoreless innings, striking out 5 and not walking a single batter. Seager doubled home 1 run, and Nathaniel Lowe launched a solo shot for the Rangers. Those were the 2 runs that Ohtani gave up in 6 innings. A solid performance, but not good enough when the Angels' offense was silent. Ohtani struck out 11, giving him 68 strikeouts in his last 6 starts. Rangers 2, Angels 0. Left-hander Alex Wood took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, and your mean Mercedes contributed a 2-run single to a 3-run third as host San Francisco snapped a 7-game losing streak by beating Chicago. Patrick Wisdom smacked a 2-run homer for the Cubs, who saw a 6-game win streak come to an end. His 18th homer of the season came 3 batters after Ian Happ singled to center field, leading off the inning, ending Wood's no-hit bid. In 6 2/3 innings, Wood allowed 2 runs and 2 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 3. Cubs starter Justin Steele lasted just 3 2/3 innings, although all 4 runs he allowed were unearned. He gave up 5 hits and a walk while striking out 6. Giants 4, Cubs 2. After missing all of the 2021-22 campaign with an aggravated knee injury, Lakers point guard Kendrick Nunn said to reporters yesterday that he was fully healthy and ready to go for next season. For those of you who've never heard of Kendrick Nunn, there's a good reason. After leaving the Miami Heat to sign a 2-year, $10.25 million contract with the Lakers, the plan was Nunn was supposed to be healthy sometime in the middle of last season and reinforce the Lakers' guard rotation next to Russell Westbrook. Instead, his injury forced him to sit out all season and watch from the sidelines as Los Angeles floundered to an awful 33-49 regular season record. Blame for their struggles was placed on newcomer point guard Russell Westbrook for his lack of cohesion with LeBron James. But with Kendrick Nunn fully healthy and possibly in the lineup over Westbrook, could he be the straw that stirs the Lakers' drink? In his 2 seasons with Miami, Nunn averaged 15 points, 3 assists, and 2.9 rebounds, and shot a serviceable 36% from 3-point range. After going undrafted in 2019, Nunn was one of the biggest undrafted success stories during his rookie season. The floor spacing Nunn can bring with his shooting accuracy could be exactly what the Lakers need next season. Where Westbrook's lack of a jump shot bogged down LA's half-court offense, Nunn could thrive, playing off LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That's all for California sports. Back to you.
That's all for tonight. You can join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. If you have any news, tips, or ideas for our show, or you just want to let us know how we're doing, our email is california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful weekend.